Guys, this is Prati Kamasani, and today I'm going to talk about my another Power BI portfolio project, Star Science. This is going to be a two-part series. In part one, I'm going to talk about how I imported data, basically data mashing, and in part two, I'm going to talk about how I actually designed the report. When you're working with open data, finding interesting data that excites you is the key. So the Star Science, I came across when you're born in India and raised up in India, Star Science, you like it or not, Star Science is something you come across. So on Instagram feed, I saw something related to the Star Science and I immediately thought, maybe I should do something about it in Power BI. So that's where the idea came from. And then I started Googling to find some data set where I could find the name, all the star sign names, the pictures, and also the characteristics of the star signs. Then I come across this one called Cosmopolitan. So it has pretty much everything I need. It has the names, dates, and also some of the information like, what is the symbol and some more information about it. So what I did is I basically copied the web address, started a new query, went for web, and then I got a quite nice table view of my star signs and the other information about it. So I chose the table and clicked OK. So that gives me this data. As you can see, there's quite a bit of dirty data here. For example, here I have this name repeatedly. Here it talks about the advertisement, but at the same time, it also gives me some important information I wanted. And then again over here, so if I go back to website, there is quite a bit of information I want, but it is actually not captured in my query. So I looked into what exactly happening in these steps. So it's using HTML table source, and I remember reading some blog post about it. So that's when I started Googling again. And this time I found Chris Webb's and Matthew's blog post. So Chris Webb talked about how using HTML.table and how we could get extra information. And on the same topic, Matthew actually went into deeper and explained how this actually works. So after going through these blog posts, I opened the developer tools and I went on to figure out what exactly I need. So for example, I am interested in these dates and then I'm interested in these things. So I used this option. I didn't know that I could use that until I started working this. And then it takes me exactly where I wanted to go. For example, over here. So I could see what I have here is this is basically the information I want. So from here, I kind of reverse engineered. I went to Power BI. I focused on the only two columns that I really need. So I'm interested only in column 1 and column 3 for now. So I removed all the rest of the columns that I don't really need, just so that I could be clear on what I'm working with. So that gives me column 1 and column 3. But in column 3, it doesn't give me the entire text. So for example, if I go back here, that column 3 is giving me only this information, but not rest of the information. So I go back here using this one. I went there. I could see it has like 2 classes with body text. This class is coming, but the next class is not coming. So I went back to my Power BI and I looked at the previous example. So in column 5 is where the next class is coming. So let me go and see how the data is coming to column 5. So I could see this is what it's been used to get the next one. So I'm just gonna copy that, go back here. So now it is working for this one, but not the second one or the 10th one or the 11th one. I went back to Chrome and tried to look what's happening at the next one. So this is where I'm interested in, and then I could see there is an advertisement, so it's basically bringing the next one. But what I'm interested in is this. That was difficult. I think I spent more time on figuring out how to get next body text element or attribute than anything else. And later I figured out I should have just read Matthew's blog post a bit better, than I would have saved a lot of time. On Matthew's blog post, he mentioned about CSS selectors. And in the CSS selectors, it kind of talks about how you could get the next element. So like element plus element. So I use the same logic in Power BI. So in Power BI, instead of using the star, I went for body text plus body text. Now I don't get the advertisement anymore, but I don't actually get the actual value as well. So I added more columns, pretty much exactly same, with a different column name and more elements. But I still don't get what I want. And then I go back to my Google Chrome and look into here and figure out what exactly happening. So, I mean, I could be totally wrong, but this is how I managed to make it work. So this is the advertisement, which is there. And afterwards, I have my body text, like the text I want. And that is part of this one. So I decided, okay, let's go and add this class and see what happens. Back to Power BI, and now I added vertical add plus dot body text. Now I get the data I'm interested in. So let me remove this, and that gives me the second column. Then back to Chrome and figure out what I need for this bit. So basically I followed the same pattern, and the end I have something like this. So where I basically went through developer tools, figured out what is the actual path for the text I wanted, and then I basically manually added them over here. Then I kind of merged columns so that I could replace those null values and things like that. And finally, I have a data set which looks like this. And instead of me just stopping there, I felt overconfident and I was like, oh, now I mastered my HTML part. I need images to show my icons, well, not icons, the symbols of the star signs. I went on Googling and I found another website with the images. This website has every possible image in a PNG format. Instead of grabbing image URL for each sign, basically I have 11 or 12 signs, which would have been a lot easier, but I wanted to import all these image URLs into my Power BI because now obviously I mastered the HTML parts. But that was a wrong idea, because when I use this website as a source in Power BI, let's see. This is what I get. But I anyway imported that table, so that gives me a good start. I could see it's definitely importing images, but just not what I want. I don't have, it doesn't have any URLs or anything. So back to developer tools, I used this icon and figured out what is the image source, and this is the image source. I'll just grab this image source from by using the HTML table. Then I will have the URLs for all the images. Matthew's blog post, he does talk about how he was bringing the hrefs source URLs from his source. So basically, I used the same logic. I went back to Power BI. I looked for my row selector, which is row li. Back to developer tools, and I could see where I'm having the row.li, and in here I have all the images. For example, if I go and choose for the next one, I could see where is the next one. Again, reverse engineered and figured out like how many elements or classes are there, and I added all those classes in my Power BI. If I go to my existing example, I added that path here, and instead of just using the path, I added each attribute. So what that gives me is at that path, whatever the attributes are part of that, I've got those attributes back. What I'm interested in is this source, which has the PNG. So at the end, I basically got that source, and then I created a custom column to get the full HTML URL, and I converted that into a function, and later I called that function and managed to got every single image for the star sign that I wanted to work with. And that gave me this simple data model to work with. So that's the part one, my data mashing and web scraping. I mean, personally, I enjoyed the whole web scraping process because this was the second time I probably used HTML table to get data. It's a good thing to learn, I think, but it's definitely quite frustrating when you're working with it. The drawbacks are if the website gets changed, then probably your code may not work. I mean, in my example, there's no way I'm gonna refresh that model again. It was more of just one-off. I think it's quite good for one of those one-off ones or quick learning exercises about how to use HTML table, a function in the Power Query. So stay tuned. In the part 2, I'm going to talk about how I designed the report.